Hey, 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 you are joining the Cover One Fantasy Show. I am one of your three amigos, Greg Tompsett, joined by Anthony Prohaska, and on site from the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, Rich Haynes. How we doing, guys? Rich, how's the Bourbon Trail holding up?
Oh man, Bourbon Trail's been great. Like I'm down here for a buddy's one of his first 6 bachelor parties because he's getting married next June. So he's just having literally multiple bachelor parties, and I'm going to another one in Mexico in March. But we're down here.
Great strategy.
Up. Yeah, I love it. Great idea. I mean, I'm totally
better than our fantasy strategy.
It's very true. Our fantasy strategy on the one team is failing, but we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, Bourbon Trail's been great. One real quick story. We were down here and we went to this one place called, I think it was Three Brothers or Three Boys Distillery. And it literally is a farm in the middle of freaking nowhere, Kentucky. And they're distilling in their barn. And it's literally an episode of Moonshiners. But it's so cool. And they you can taste it right out of the barrels, the casks. And then if you want it, you bottle your own. And you use this huge tool to extract the bourbon yourself, bottle it and label it. And they don't sell it on shelves. It's so cool, and I'll send some pictures to you guys when I get done.
But you can literally have really a bottle of whiskey no one else could possibly have.
No one else, right? And it will never
not
be
possibly, but no one else without being there.
Right, unless they took a bottle out of the same cask, no one else will literally have it because they're not a huge operation, right? So it's going to differ a little bit every single time they do it. So super cool. Love it down here in Kentucky. Louisville's a great city. So but we're getting ready for Seattle. In the Rams, we're thinking about what bets we're going to put in on the game. Nice. And we're talking about, Chris Carson being out and Alex Collins. Should we start him? Should we not? All that kind of stuff with the table. So real quick, I'm going to let them get a little shout out here. We just got some food. So this is the boys. This is the boys. This is the boys. We just got a little food action going on. So it's been great. It's been great.
Awesome. Anthony, I don't know if you can top that from down from the Bourbon Trail, but how's your day going?
It's going good. I'm just happy to be able to connect this week to the show. Technical difficulties last week with the stream, and then technology did not work for me. So I'm just excited to, be back. In the previous week, I wasn't there because of, being out of the country. So it's nice just to be back amongst friends. It's not cool. I'm just in my, office. I'm not on the Bourbon Trail hanging out, living it up like Rich, but I'm just happy to be back. I'm happy to be here and just showing up so I don't get fined.
It's very, very fitting, Marshawn, and coming into the night tonight. It's gonna be interesting. So Rich was kind of talking about the setup for this game, and it's going to be interesting because if you're down in right now, if you have questions, Chris Carson is out. I think Alex Collins is a pretty solid start. I think he immediately jumps into that area for Myles Gaskin, Darrell Henderson, Mike Davis, in those ranges that we've been talking about.
I'm mentioning backs that I've taken that are not doing
good. And it's I think I think that there's a little bit of a cap with Travis Homer. I think they like Travis Homer as a receiving back, and he might get a little bit more run. And so Chris Carson, Alex Collins probably isn't a direct corollary for him, and that he's going to get the full Chris Carson load, but I think he gets a pretty good start. And if you're in a tough spot, if you had David Montgomery and didn't get Damian Williams, if you had Christian McCaffrey and didn't get Chuba Hubbard, and all of a sudden you're scrambling and you're debating, heck, I have a league where I was debating, do I start Brandon Bolden? And all of a sudden I now get Alex Collins. I at least get
savior.
Thank you. Okay, I feel this is a thing. I can at least bank on this tonight. But let's kind of start there. I know in our league with Rich, we're in that spot, and we've been desperate for RB2, and we were debating on, hey, how much do we bid on these guys? And just for folks' examples, obviously, this can apply whether you're using your top waiver priority or whether you're in a league with a fantasy auction, free agent auction budget, a FAAB budget. We're in one with a FAAB budget, and we have $1,000, and we bid $628 on Damian Williams, and it wasn't enough, and he went for almost $700, and it's it's tough to figure out, okay, should we have splurged more? We initially had our budget all the way up at 800, and then, okay, well, maybe that's a little too high. Let's bring it down a little bit. And of course, now we miss out.
On both.
And yes, yeah. And we also didn't bid enough on Alex Collins. So now all of a sudden we're stuck again in our spot. So
it's cool because we went receiver heavy and they're all working out.
And they're all working out great. It's fantastic. But I will say I was in a lot of my other leagues. I was pretty heavy into Damian Williams. I think that, when you have a guy like David Montgomery who's out, it sounds like 4 to 6 weeks, and I've heard 5 games seems pretty solid as a run that he's going to get. It's, there's so few answers at running back right now. Montgomery's been pretty solid. Damian Williams has looked really good. He's PFF's top-graded player on the Bears' offense. Damian Williams is their top-graded player. He's produced at a similar efficiency to David Montgomery. You guys, everybody knows that, a rushing quarterback is actually better for the running back than a lot of people realize. It a lot of times it puts the linebackers in conflict, and it can open up a little bit more runs that way for it. So I think there's a potential that he could matter. So I've been pretty aggressive with him in a lot of leagues, and I wanted to open this up kind of in that area. One, any thoughts on how you approach that in some of your leagues, and how do we try to get ahead of this? How do we figure out who are the guys that maybe we can not have to scramble and bid a ton, and that are in situations that could matter if there's another injury, and some ways to pick those guys up. So I'll first start with, how did you approach this week? Was probably, Damian Williams for David Montgomery, Samaje Perine for Joe Mixon, Alex Collins for Chris Carson. Those guys were all in the discussion. How did you approach those?
I think a lot of it is looking at at two things: the injury piece of the running back themselves, like the starter. So the David Montgomery, the Mixon, the Chris Carson, who we just found out, was officially out tonight. Like, how long are they going to be out for? What does the schedule look like in that mix? And then the rotational piece of, okay, does this guy, like, you mentioned the workload aspect, like are any of these guys going to get the Alexander Madison for Dalvin Cook workload, where Cook is out and we know, cool, Madison is sweet and you can plug him in and he's going to get, he might not give you RB1 production, but he'll give you RB2 production because he's good enough and he's going to get the touches. So I looked at it from that perspective. I had multiple leagues where, though all the leagues that these guys were available in, or one of them that weren't available for me, aside from the league that you and I are in together with Rich that did not work out so well, they were all available in non-FAAB leagues. They were available in waiver priority leagues for me. So I had multiple leagues where I was in the top 5, and I went back and forth really doing like, could I get them? Do I want to burn waiver priority on them? Is this something that's worth taking? At the end of the day, I stood pat on a lot of it. I think a lot of it comes down to roster construction and what you need. So, for example, to put everybody in, we've, we kept making jokes about it. We've suffered a bit of bad luck in the league that we share together in terms of injuries and just some legitimately unlucky bounces. Like
a bunch of really, really close losses, like things
or
like that just happen.
I don't know, maybe like heading into last week and all you need is 4.5 points from Mike Williams and all he gives you is 1.5 points. Little like losses like that.
Like that one.
They crush your soul. Just losses
the number 2 overall receiver on the season.
Yeah, I really thought that was guaranteed. I'm like, well, he's at least going to have like 4 catches for probably like 60 yards. But you're looking at things like that. And our team, we went receiver heavy early because of how the draft board fell to us. We've suffered some losses. We were sitting there at 1-3. So for us, it was like, okay, 1, we could use the running back depth because we're so receiver centric. 2, we need to start turning things around a little bit, because if we start to get to 1-4, 1-5, or even 1-6, the more you start to slide, you're almost nail in the coffin every single week that you start to slide. So I think there's a lot of things to consider in terms of 1, your roster construction, 2, what are your current standings? Do you need somebody right now to kind of save you? Because to your point, we in what we were talking about with Rich was, how much FAAB do we want to spend on? I combined FAAB and FFPC and made it in one thing. How much do we want to appreciate it? I like to merge things. How much do we want to spend, now considering we have the rest of the season? But then the thought was like, well, if we don't start to pull some wins out the next couple of weeks, the rest of the season's not going to matter. So I think you take all those kind of standings in your roster. what your current record is and how much you need these players, and then work that in with their volume and schedule and all those things. And in terms of predicting, I think you start to look in things kind of like how you did previously, in the offseason as the draft was coming up. We look at certain teams and we're like, okay, if so-and-so goes down, who steps in for them? So I already spoke about Minnesota. Everybody knows, like, if Dalvin Cook goes down, Alexander Madison's stepping up and he's getting a large workload. We previously thought, like, Latavius Murray could be in that boat for Alvin Kamara.
Sure.
Then once he went, it was like, well, maybe it's Tony Jones. So people are starting to, grab Tony Jones up and things like that. But what's nice now that the season's played out a little bit, you've started to see what timeshares and what backfields look like. So maybe in a committee where you thought, well, it's so-and-so, and then it could be any of these three guys behind him, it's not anymore. Look at the situation, in Atlanta. How many people thought, well, Wayne Gallman's now going to be the number 2, and that's it. And all of a sudden it's been Cordero Patterson. Like, you have guys who have started to emerge, and I think that's what you start to look for. Looking at teams who have played multiple running backs, could be 2, could be 3. What are those snap shares looking like? What are targets looking like? What are situations looking like? Are they getting red zone carries when the game matters? Are they just spelling someone on third down? Are they seeing legitimate third down snaps like J.D. McKissick in Washington? Is it somebody saw, a third down snap just to spell the starter? Or is it because, no, this is that person's role? I think people's roles and rosters have started to define themselves a little bit. And I think that's your key in trying to predict who would be next up, looking at teams who already have a bit of a role for that guy, and then anticipating, what, they already like, so-and-so. If the guy ahead of him goes down, he could be a solid workload guy for me. And I think you start to predict those lineups and go from there based on current snap shares and what the looks have been like each week.
So I have a couple thoughts on that, but I want to jump to one of the questions here. DJ in the chat asked, would you do Mike Williams and Deandre Swift for Chris Godwin and Chase Edmonds? Big time trade for playable players. Obviously, going into the season, Godwin was ranked quite a bit ahead of Williams. So far in the season, Williams has outperformed him. Going into the season, Swift was ahead of Edmonds and has stayed ahead and has even done has really good receiving work. He's getting Godwin and Edmonds.
I'll go here. For me, I really, really like Chase Edmonds. I watched a lot of Cardinals games last year as a person who had a lot of shares of Kyler Murray, so I was a fan of him last year. I liked him even more this year with Kenyon Drake not being on the team anymore. So I like him, and Godwin's a really good player. I would stand pat with Mike Williams and Deandre Swift. I like the explosiveness of the Chargers offense. I like the big playability of Mike Williams, even though he decided not to do any big plays for us this past Monday so that we lose. And Deandre Swift is somebody, I was down on him to start this year. I think you were as well. We kind of all stayed away from Deandre Swift shares in the draft just because of him individually, but more so because of the Lions offense and what we thought the team was going to be. And it hasn't been that. He's looked explosive. He's been effective in the run and the pass. The Lions, they're winless, but I think they've looked more functional on offense than they have. I like both Williams and Swift. And, if you want to go for that deal and take Godwin and Edmonds, I wouldn't hate it, but I'd stand pat with Mike Williams and Deandre Swift, me personally.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on in that range. Leading into the season, I would have taken Godwin and Edmonds. So there's a piece of me that says, hey, I think maybe some of our preconceived ideas will probably prove more true the rest of the year. This past week for Swift is a concern for me because that, whatever it was, 10 carries for 20 yards and 8.9 points total is exactly what I worried about with him coming into the year. I'm torn. You just came out. So it's hard. You're coming off Mike Williams and Deandre Swift's 2 worst games of the year. And now you're in a spot where should I trade them for guys who haven't performed as high as them? I think that is a perfectly fair trade. And that if you felt comfortable and liked Godwin and Edmonds coming into the year, I don't think you're wrong to do it. I do think that, Williams and Swift have outproduced them so far, so there's plenty of reason to think it's going to go back to that. I don't think it's crazy to do that trade. I agree with Anthony. I think I might hold pat. It might not be quite enough for me to move them, but I don't think it's crazy, and I think that it's a fair bet that if your gut tells you that, hey, I think going forward, Godwin and Edmonds are going to outproduce them, there are some metrics that show Chris Godwin has gotten unlucky in Tampa, and that there's some things that could bounce back his way. So I don't think it's crazy. Another one here, Michael Lucas.
Don't say AJ Brown.
Gonna drop this now and listen later. Pick one: AJ Brown, Odell Beckham Jr., Beasley, Cortland Sutton. And then he's got in a flex spot the same wide receivers or Damian Williams. I will say I'll take Damian Williams in that spot, in the flex spot. I think he's got the highest floor out of those guys. I'm not ready to play AJ Brown in any capacity until after I see him produce for a week. He's had poor production and then a soft tissue injury. I need to see him make it through a game and produce before I'll eat 4 for 160 game that he breaks a long touchdown and feel bad and then play him the next time that comes up.
It's tough.
I might lean Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm staying away from Odell just with Baker's non-throwing shoulder, torn labrum, and just
Chargers
how bad
have a good
he
secondary.
Yep, and how bad he looked throwing the football. Odell looked great last week. Route running, speed. Baker just could not get him
missed
the
a couple
ball.
big time plays that could have been big touchdowns.
Should have had a touchdown in the red zone, and then should have had probably a 70-yard touchdown that Baker underthrew him on. So that scares me a little bit. I like the matchup for Cole Beasley. Cortland Sutton's been sweet though, even with Bridgewater going out last week and Drew Lock stepping in. Cortland Sutton has been the number one there. He's put up big weeks. I forget who Denver plays.
They have Pittsburgh, their secondary has not been awesome. Their front is great, but their secondary is not awesome.
Yeah, I'm taking Cortland Sutton. I like Cortland Sutton. I think but I agree with you, spot on. I would like to start AJ Brown, even if the reports are good, but I don't know. What if he comes out and runs a vert on the second play and then he pulls up lame? And especially against a team like the Jags, granted the Titans aren't that great, but I don't know if they're pounding the Jags, they might just be like, all right, cool, let's shut you down mid-second quarter because we're already up 21-0. There's no you looked good, just settle it down. Let's sit down, get ready for Buffalo. So yeah, I go Cortland Sutton and Damian Williams as well. That would be my thought there.
We've got another one here, Jay Bowen. Do you guys think DK Metcalf will do well tonight in full PPR with his foot and Jalen Ramsey? So Bill Barnwell put it best when I saw earlier on Twitter is you can't bench DK Metcalf, and you need to brace yourself that it might not be a great game.
I think that's spot on, especially after the playoff game last year. Yeah. Ramsey had Metcalf frustrated. He had him on lock. DK Metcalf is the type of receiver. It's wild. He gives so many guys fits. Ramsey is not a good matchup for him. He's
one of the only humans who can actually physically match him.
Correct. He has better footwork and technique than DK does. He's probably just as fast as DK, and he's not small enough to get bullied. So again, but you can't bench DK Metcalf.
He can still get a corner fade route. They can still. I do not think that Jalen Ramsey is going to completely shadow him the whole game. I don't think it's going to be Ramsey on DK every single snap. And I think Russell Westbrook. I think
he could play quarterback.
I think Russell Wilson is going to identify the snaps where Ramsey's not on Metcalf and push him the ball. So I don't think you can sit him unless you're completely stacked at receiver and other spots that you just have an awesome team and you can afford to play 4 or 5 other guys ahead of DK Metcalf. I'd be shocked, and I will lean right into Juke as here, Lockett or Woods tonight for exactly the reasons we just said. There's a lot of things that lead to this could be a pretty good Lockett night because I do think Jalen Ramsey is going to spend more on Lockett or on Metcalf, so Lockett has a potential. I will say Sean McVay did say they're going to make a concerted effort to get more touches to Robert Woods tonight, so we'll see if that's true. They've been just feeding the ball to Cooper Kupp.
I've got multiple leagues where I've got like Kupp in one league and then Woods in others, and I took them thinking they're both gonna be the same guy, solid floor, and Kupp is just exploding, and Woods. What's even more frustrating with Woods is that he's such an awesome dude. Like reporters keep being like, "You're not getting the ball thrown. Like, how do you feel?" And he's like, "I like the ball, but I'm cool just blocking. The team's winning. It is what it is." Like he's just consummate professional leader. Like he's not complaining about it, and it's wild too because he's a really good receiver, and I thought he would fit. Nothing against Kupp, who is really good. I thought Woods would fit great with Matthew Stafford. Accurate thrower, strong arm. Woods is a tremendous route runner, feeds in that intermediate part of the field. I keep waiting for that.
Second one from Juke here. His other option is Corey Davis against the Falcons.
Both.
So out of those three, I kind of think now. I will say the Falcons is as good of a matchup as you're going to get for Corey Davis. So
especially now that Calvin Ridley decided to stay home.
Yeah, well, I mean, he might have gone and covered Corey Davis, but I
meant because of game script. I meant game script.
But I would have Corey Davis not that far below Lockett and Woods because of the Falcons matchup, but I would have Lockett and Woods both ahead of him. I would play both of them tonight over Corey Davis. And it's over in London, and the weather's supposed to be weird, and just weird stuff happens in that game. We've had some really ugly, low-scoring games in that game. So I don't mind Corey Davis. He might be a flex option for you. I'm not sure what your flex options are with running back in the other spots if he's your third receiver. So I think he's worth considering. I would have Lockett and Woods slightly ahead of him.
Agreed. I think Woods, he plays in a super prolific offense against a bad defense in Seattle. I like the Seattle offense because I think Ramsey sees more of Metcalf than he does Lockett, like we discussed. And then I think from the game script aspect for the Jets and Falcons, you're welcome, Juke. Appreciate you. From the game script piece, I think Atlanta tries to lean more on the short passing game and then little gadgetry and runs, and I think they chew up the clock more and move the ball that way. I don't know how many possessions or snaps the Jets offense gets, and I don't know how efficient Corey Davis is going to be in potentially limited action, and plus the London
for the fourth time, I'm going to say this is going to be the week for Mike Davis. It is.
He scored a touchdown last week. Did you see his touchdown?
And it was
nice.
Yes,
and
great
tackles.
That's been the frustrating part is that he is getting the volume that we projected. He is getting 2/3 of that backfield. He is getting all the things that we said were there. It's just Cordero Patterson is the guys on the Ringer Fantasy Show. We're saying it. I can't help it that Cordero Patterson is right now the most efficient fantasy player in history.
It's wild.
He's scoring 2 fantasy points for every snap that he plays.
It's wild. Every 7 touches like a touchdown, and the whole rest of
it's unbelievable.
Cordero Patterson to me is like the Thanos, so Cordero Patterson's being successful. What did it cost? It's like the entire Falcons offense.
Everything.
Calvin Ridley is all of a sudden inefficient. Matt Ryan doesn't know how to read pressures. Kyle Pitts, nothing. Everybody is terrible on this offense, but Cordero Patterson. I don't understand.
Yeah. Another real quick one here. I'll just say Christian McCaffrey is just like my recommendation for DK Metcalf. If you have Christian McCaffrey and he's starting. If he's starting for the Panthers, he's starting for your fantasy team. And you just have to prepare yourself that he might go out. But you cannot bench a stud like that who's been producing at 25, 30 points a game and just hope not to. So I wanted to go back here.
Coming through
it's been great. Brandon here jumping in from Facebook. Should I trade Chris Carson and James Robinson for Austin Eckler? I love trades like this. If you have another team and they have Austin Eckler and no one, and they're in the spot I was talking about where they've been injuries and they're starting Brandon Bolden and they're like, listen, I'd rather start both Carson and Robinson than Eckler and Brandon Bolden. Yes, I love these trades all the time. Anytime you can upgrade and get a better starter, I think it's worth it. Now, I will say you can't do it to the point where you don't have another starter. So I don't know if you're still listening, Brandon. I'd love to know who your RB2 is then, who your RB3 is now currently, or maybe you have another RB1 ahead of Carson and Robinson and you're pairing Eckler with a Joe Mixon or a Alvin Kamara or whoever. So for me, I'd say yes, but Anthony, what do you think?
You know I originally looked at the value and was like, no, but with the Carson injury concern and things, it's not exactly like this, but I'm almost kind of viewing it as like a 1.5 for 1. I'm almost viewing it like James Robinson for Eckler, and then you're also throwing maybe like Chris Carson in because you don't know how long this chronic neck
injuries
injury.
are weird, man.
Yep, they're weird.
Neck injuries are weird.
He gets banged up a decent amount as well. Granted, I know Austin Eckler does. He has some injury concern as well. But yeah, depending on what the rest of your running back room looks like, which based on what the Jags backfield looked like coming into the year with Travis Etienne, he may have gotten James Robinson a little later. So he may have a good third running back, or Carson and Robinson might be, to your point, the 2 and the 3. And he's got, I don't know, like Najee Harris or Antonio Gibson or something like that. So barring, depending on what the rest of your running back roster looks like, yeah, I would swing this deal. Eckler looks tremendous in that offense, and they're feeding him the ball. So he's a stud, and Greg has him in a league that I know of, and he's enjoying that as well.
I do enjoy it thoroughly. Charles G. asking here, pick 2, Lockett, CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen. That's a great problem to deal with. Allen's the lock for me, and then it's between Lockett and CeeDee Lamb.
Lamb and Allen for me. Just because
Same.
off of the off chance of, I don't think this would happen, but I don't know. The Rams defense shows up big on a weird Thursday night. Maybe Russell Wilson goes 19 of 31 for 157 yards, and you don't get any big plays, and you get held up a little. Lamb is
one of those weird Freddie Swain games that happen sometimes. That
you could have that. And
Lamb was quiet last week, so I get the trepidation. I think that this was a lot easier prior to that, but I kind of lean the same way. I think I would go Allen and Lamb.
Same. It's tough though. I honestly though,
Allen for sure. Sure.
And they play. Who do the Chargers play this week?
Browns. Right, which is not an easy secondary. They have a solid secondary.
No,
but his volume is just so high. He has such a high
unreal.
floor. He's
so
on
good.
pace like the kind of season Stephon Diggs had last year. He's just a
Tremendous
ton of
route
balls every single week.
He's sweet.
I
don't think
like
you're really
CeeDee
making a
Lamb
wrong
lot.
decision. I don't think if you pick any of these two, you're making a bad decision.
I think all 3 are going to have good games. Yeah. I think
I would go
the
Lamb and
Cowboys
Allen.
are against the Giants.
Correct. In New York, in Dallas. So
that's a nice matchup
and that
for
offense
them.
is rolling. Like the defense, the Cowboys defense is all of a sudden like a really good unit. Like they're getting turnovers and takeaways.
Legitimately playing fast and playing well.
Yeah, they locked down Herbert. They locked down, depending on how you view them, they messed up the Eagles' offense and Jalen Hurts a little bit in that game. So 2 good performances, and so maybe.
Yes,
we do take
Lark
questions.
McFlurg, we do take questions.
Oh, and then he has a question right after that.
So PPR pick 2,
Zach Moss over everyone.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Alex Collins, Zach Moss, Damien. So you do have a little bit of time here. I don't mind Alex Collins tonight. This is the best matchup Damian Harris is going to get all season. It's
Houston, yep.
Bill Belichick coming off that game last week against the Houston Texans. This is the best Damian Harris matchup you're going to get all week. I like the idea of Zach Moss. I think there's the potential that they really try to the Bills run more 12 personnel against the Chiefs than what they normally do and try to run a little bit more.
He gets those red zone touches.
Yes, high scoring game. I love the over in the Bills and Chiefs game. Edwards-Helaire has been a weapon against Buffalo before, but Buffalo's defense certainly looks better with Star Lotulelei back this year. For me, I weirdly think it's Alex Collins and Damian Harris.
Oh, interesting.
I kind of think I would go with Alex Collins and Damian Harris. I feel the most comfortable in their floors.
I feel like he's gonna hate us because my pick was gonna be Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Zach Moss.
This would be a good friendly bet. This would be a good friendly wager. I'll take Alex Collins and Damian Harris against Edwards-Helaire and Moss. We'll see who comes out with the more combo.
Like I'm thinking it through. I like Moss because of potential game script, red zone opportunities, potential touchdowns. But honestly, to your point, you can make a case for all of them. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the safest in terms of overall workload and volume. He's probably going to catch the most passes out of everybody, see the most snaps, be on the field the most. But also, I don't know how much he's going to get the ball.
He has the worst matchup of the 4 defense.
He does. He has the worst matchup. Plus, Tremaine Edmonds will probably cover him, and Tremaine Edmonds is the greatest linebacker known to man.
It's fantastic.
Easy. AFC Player of the Week on defense. But I wonder. But also, if Milano's out, maybe that helps Clyde Edwards-Helaire a little bit. But he's just been so up and down. But the talent's there. The offense is there. Yeah, I'm going to go with CEH and Zach Moss. But I wouldn't be afraid.
You might have swayed me a little bit on Edwards-Helaire because I do think he has a safer overall package in PPR with the catches. I still believe that Belichick in this game against the Houston Texans, I think Damien Harris could have a huge game. So I like Damien Harris in DFS. I like Damien Harris for our sponsor Underdog. If you're doing,
you like him in the preseason,
drafts.
You like him in the drafts.
I liked him in the preseason. But well, and from the ugly games that he had, my one caution to people were, hey, he's not an every week player for you. We've realized that. However, there are matchups coming with the Jaguars and with the Jets and with the Texans that you're going to want Damien Harris. He is going to get the ball. And now with J.J. Taylor banished to Siberia and James White out and all the other pieces missing, and Ramondre Stevenson never touching the field again, it's him and Brandon Bolden. They're it. And that I think a game like this against Houston, he's going to have a good game. So I would go. I think it's fine. Edwards-Helaire and Damien Harris, although I think Alex Collins has a solid game tonight.
Yeah, I think you actually have pretty good options here, Lark, McFlork.
Yeah, I think all four could be doing good. If you have a chance to maybe sneak another one into the flex spot, it's not a bad spot.
This is what sucks, because it's like I have 4 good options. I need to figure out which 2 to pick, and I don't want them to be the wrong ones because then I'm going to kick myself for picking the wrong ones.
And you guys are not helpful. I hate you all.
Sorry.
Spin here asking, should I pick up Daniel Jones off free agency and replace Kirk Cousins?
So Jones for Cousins.
I will say that there's been a pretty nice start matchup-wise for Daniel Jones, and it gets worse going forward.
Accurate.
Because I forgot to take my victory lap for how nice Saquon Barkley and Zeke Elliott have looked so far when I told people to buy low on them. But for Saquon, there are some tougher matchups coming. And I feel better about Saquon Barkley than I do Daniel Jones. But I know that because I was looking at the matchups coming for Saquon. So the next couple weeks for Kirk Cousins, you have Detroit, Carolina, who legitimately looks good, bye week, Dallas, Baltimore, Chargers. So some tough ones. One, I think you're smart to be looking to replace Kirk Cousins. That's the first step. I think that makes sense. He was already a matchup type quarterback for you. He was not some locked in starter, and now he's got after this Detroit game, I might keep him for this week for Detroit. After that, he's got a nasty stretch of defenses and a bye week coming.
I was also going to say, I'm assuming, Spin, this is for your backup, and if so, I would also consider who's your starter and what is his bye week, and then look to see who has the better matchup between these two guys for your bye week. That might be the ultimate swing.
I was taking it from a sense of either a 2 QB league, or you went QB really late, or you drafted whoever, somebody else who hasn't panned out, whatever it might be, and you have to play them. If it's not,
it was his starter. It's his starter.
Oh, okay. There we go. So let's continue down this path. Daniel Jones the next couple weeks: Dallas, the Rams, Carolina. Those 3 are tough. Yeah. Then you get KC and Vegas, which are both fine. Then a bye week, and then you come back with Tampa Bay. So I don't know who else is out there, Spin. It's hard to kind of tell us on the fly. Yeah, I would almost be looking, can you get Sam Darnold? Can you get Justin Fields? Can you get Trey Lance? I think there's more upside in some of those guys. Even if you're down in that range of like boring quarterbacks like that, the next couple weeks, at least Matt Ryan has the Jets and the Dolphins. That's maybe even a little bit more.
You threw one out there. What about Taylor Heinecke?
Let me check the matchups here. I don't mind Taylor.
And
Heinecke.
Also for he also has Chris Godwin, Justin. I like this. Chris Godwin, Justin Jefferson, Alvin Kamara, Antonio Gibson, Josh Jacobs, and Gronk.
That's some of his other. That's a heck of a team.
Yeah, which explains why
his quarterback's so bad.
He racked up and then went QB late, which is a strategy I love.
Heinecke has the Saints, the Chiefs, the Packers, and the Broncos. So similar. None of those are awesome.
Logan
matchups.
Thomas is out for a bit too.
Yeah.
My team is cursed. I've got Logan Thomas on IR, James White on IR, Ridley's out this week, AJ Brown. I just hit the lottery for this in one of those leagues.
Here's a sneaky one. The next couple weeks, Trevor Lawrence has Tennessee, Miami, Seattle. That's probably manageable. So I think you're fine to be looking in that range. Another one that's been very, a little bit lower than years past. Ryan Tannehill, if he got dropped, has Jacksonville, KC, Indy, a couple other games. He's got the Buffalo game mixed in there, but at least some good matchups.
Best defense in the league.
Joe Burrow, if he got dropped, he's got a couple decent ones coming up. Green Bay, Detroit, Baltimore in there, but then the Jets. So at least 3 good ones.
So say no other quarterback on the market exists, and you have to pick between these two right now, knowing what you know about their upcoming schedule and who they are as a quarterback, gun to your head, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins.
I would have I would keep Cousins against Detroit and then try again next week and look again next week. I would keep Cousins for now over Jones and Heinecke for this week because I think the Detroit matchup's easy and Cousins has been solid. And then I would take a look. I would maybe debate, do you have a roster spot where you could look ahead and see who has the best matchup next week, and can you try to pivot that out rather than Cousins on the road in Carolina? Maybe that's a way to manage it. And honestly, it might be trying to find a spot. Jones plays the Rams next week. That's not awesome. But it might be something like that, trying to find a spot where you can squeeze somebody in.
I was going to say, I think you can keep Cousins for this week. I don't think someone's going to pick up Daniel Jones because I don't think he has a great game against Dallas, and I don't think people are going to pick him up to play against the Rams. If you could roster multiple quarterbacks, I would love for you to do that and then alternate based on the matchup. And look
Heinecke has Kansas City next week, so that's a solid one. That's there.
Fantastic. Oh, he just dropped Baker Mayfield is what he said. He just dropped Baker.
Yeah, I would try for the next 2 weeks. I would try to do Cousins against Detroit, Heinecke against KC, and just keep your eyes open for other ones coming after
and
that.
Because play those steps ahead. Yep.
Yeah, and once you get the Detroit matchup out of Cousins, you can drop him because then he's got nasty matchups coming. Look a week ahead of Heineke's KC matchup. Who's the best one coming up after that? And rotate that until you hit on somebody that you feel like you could play for a couple weeks in a row. Yep. I would continue going that way in kind of a quarterback rotation and streaming.
I won a fantasy championship streaming quarterbacks between Joe Flacco, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Andy Dalton. So play the matchups.
Well done.
Thank you, appreciate it. Play the matchups, understand who they're going against, and try and look ahead as much as possible and build your bench like that. Like, again, if you know 3 weeks from now, so-and-so has an amazing matchup, try and grab him. If you have the roster space, grab him now or next week to get ahead of that train so that way you're good to go.
S2K Nate here in a similar spot to many of us, lost Carson and David Montgomery. Obviously didn't get Alex Collins or Damien Williams, who I will say, if for some reason, I'm assuming they're not, I would have Collins and Williams ahead of those three. Out of those three, as crazy as it sounds, Atlanta's defense is really bad. Michael Carter might be the least bad out of those three. If I felt more comfortable, if Mixon's out, I think I'd go Pirine.
Yes,
there.
That's what I'm.
But I would go Pirine, then Carter. I don't think I'd want anything to do with Ingram against the Patriots defense.
Nope.
So I would be Pirine and Carter in that situation. But yeah, you're going to want to, this might be a week where you look in depending on your league. Is J.D. McKissick, is Nyheim Hines, is even Brandon Bolden, as crazy as it sounds, are they out there where you could get just, hey, you're just looking for 4 catches for 40 yards and a couple more rushes and you just squeak out 10 points just to get by?
Yeah.
I would do that before I would start Mark Ingram against the Patriots.
I'll say I'm looking at just touches and I don't
he
even know why
said it's a really deep league there. That's obviously why he's debating Mark Ingram.
I'm going Carter and Pirine. Yeah. I just don't have faith in Mark Ingram and anyone really in the Houston offense.
I will say,
Brandon Cooks.
If Mixon plays, you might not have a choice. If Mixon plays, I in theory I'd play Ingram just because you have to play somebody. But yeah, hopefully Mixon sits and then you at least have 2 playable pieces. I think Carter's okay. I think Carter's now taking the lion's share of that backfield and has a nice matchup with Atlanta. That's at least as good as you're going to get in that spot.
That's fair.
Who do the
Colts play?
The Ravens on Monday night. Man, you need to pick a different defense. Now I will say the Colts play Houston next week. I like them as a look-ahead defensive matchup, so I like holding them. I don't love the Rams against Russell Wilson. I think that's going to be a high-scoring game tonight.
If I had to pick only between these two, I'd go Colts. But I don't love it. I don't like it.
I would look to see if you can find any other defense that you can play this week.
Can
Those
you
two-
trade for the 2000 Ravens?
I
I
like
would go Colts
Dallas.
if
I
had
like
to.
Dallas against the Giants in the potential
stream.
turnovers for Daniel Jones. Obviously, the Titans against the Jags is one. The Titans aren't super highly owned. They're not even a good defense, but I'd at least rather play the variance of those that a bad quarterback's going to give you turnovers rather than one where I just don't think you're going to get it. Obviously,
If it's just between these two, I would go Colts. But to Greg's point, I would try to look for a better streaming option this week and roll with that 1 week streamer, which is a completely fine thing. Don't feel like you have to be locked in because if you've got two good defenses, but they've got bad matchups, see if you can snag somebody else, stream a defense for 1 week. Again, fantasy is a week to week league. Do whatever you got to do to get the dub this week and keep it pushing.
Yeah, and a good way to kind of look at it, a lot of the top scoring defenses aren't that great of real world defenses. Like it just doesn't have to be that complicated. Like sometimes it's just not that special, and that bad defenses score well because they played a bad quarterback, not because they were great that week. So it's important to look at the matchups as well. Sideline Star here asking, should I swap Latavius Murray for Damien
It's
Harris?
pronounced layabouts Murray.
Layabouts Murray. I will say Murray is definitely starting to get a stronger share of that Baltimore backfield and dominated that backfield this past week.
And look good.
It's a valuable backfield to have. Season long, I feel better about the week-to-week value of Latavius Murray. This week, I might... Again, I like Damien Harris against Texans a lot. I think it's a really safe play. But the Colts aren't a great defense. They're just way better than the Texans. So this week, I might slightly lean Damien Harris. Season long, I probably would lean Latavius Murray.
I'm seconding that notion completely. I think if you really wanted to make a case, you could go either guy this week, but I would slightly lean Harris because of the matchup. But long term, Latavius Murray in a successful, powerful, run-oriented, dynamic run-oriented offense, and he's starting to click. And Tyson Williams has kind of faded away.
Tyson Williams was a healthy scratch last week, and Latavius Murray got 18 carries.
Starting to fade away a little bit. This might all of a sudden become a Latavius Murray, Le'Veon Bell backfield. Like, what are we? What year is it? Where are we? But yeah, I'd go.
What year is this?
Where
am I? I don't understand. So I got a couple questions I want to bring up quick that I'll throw you from our Slack channel. Our man Kyle Salagi was asking, he has two that he needs to play. Pretty good situation. Chris Godwin, Deebo Samuel, and Amari Cooper.
Niners play.
So we have a solid setup. So the Cowboys are against the Giants.
Yes.
The Buccaneers are
Dolphins.
against the Dolphins. The 49ers are against the Cardinals. All three are fine matchups. None of them have terrible. I guess the best secondary is the Dolphins, but they're probably the worst defense.
But they're a dumpster fire of a team. I don't know what the hell happened.
Situation. Deebo has been getting an obscene amount of volume lately. And
he keeps breaking off. He keeps consistently breaking off like big plays that he should regress towards the mean at, but he just keeps scoring like 70-yard touchies.
I am in a similar situation. I have a league where I am stacked at wide receiver, and I have like 6 playable wide receivers. I'll share it real quick because it's a lot of similar names to what Kyle has. I have a league with DJ Moore, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Chris Godwin, Brandon Cooks, and Antonio Brown. I only have 3 spots. So I like Chris Godwin a lot. I like Brandon Cooks a lot. I'm obviously not sitting Cooper Kupp. He's the number 1 receiver overall right now. DJ Moore has been doing great. And I've decided I'm going to start Deebo Samuel until he doesn't get 40% of their targets. So I have Chris Godwin and Brandon Cooks and Antonio Brown on my bench right now in a league that I really like them, and I'm trying desperately to trade for running backs, but I can't get anyone to trade with me.
It's so hard to trade in fantasy.
Oh, God, it's so. And I was actually going to say real quick, the question that was being asked about Murray and Damien Harris, I was going to say I'd try real hard to get make sure you keep them both. Make sure you have them both as available because running backs are an awesome commodity right now. We'll end the show with a couple of names.
It's a wasteland out there if you don't.
It's terrible. So for me, again, the options are Deebo Samuel, Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper. I'm probably Deebo, Cooper, Godwin.
That's my same order. My only worry for the Cowboys game is where does James Bradbury go? I think he's a good cover corner, but I think the Cowboys offense so explosive. I know Cooper was banged up heading into last week, but he looked fine.
He practiced limited. He was at practice today, moving around okay, kind of limited.
Okay. I would monitor that health. If there's anything that gives you a scare, you can plug in Godwin, and I'd be fine with it. But, yeah, I would lean Deebo and Amari Cooper right now. Deebo, explosive as a player, good offense, and playing against a defense that isn't tremendously great in the secondary piece. And also the Cardinals are going to put up points, so the Niners are going to have to put up points. I'd go, same. Deebo, Cooper, Godwin. Close.
All right, I'll go one more. Willie T from the Slack channel was asking Zach Moss, Cordero Patterson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Needs 2 out of those 3.
Oh, Cordero Patterson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now that Ridley is out, I think Mike Davis and Cordero Patterson could do very well, both of them, for the Falcons this week, especially because Russell Gage is also out for the Falcons, I believe. So they're banged up as a whole.
Alameda Zacchaeus is their starting number 1 receiver.
So Patterson's going to get work out of the backfield and as a receiver, and I also expect Davis to get some work. So I like Cordero Patterson there. CEH and Moss is tough, like we talked about earlier. I think CEH is going to get way more in terms of a snap share and volume and work versus Zach Moss. Moss's touches might be a little more valuable because if he gets those red zone carries and if the Bills do want to run it a little bit more against a weaker Kansas City front and move the ball in this high-scoring game, I would lean CEH just because, I think Moss could do well, and I have a league where I am starting him, but it's a deeper league. But I just think CEH is more of the known commodity, and as we've said so many times, volume is king. I think he gets that.
I want to be a homer and say Zach Moss, but I can't. CEH is just a safer play.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Moss, but if we end the night and hey, Devin Singletary had the better game this week, I won't be flabbergasted. I'll be like, oh, okay. Yeah, that kind of happens sometimes.
Or if the Bills only run it 9 times, would you be shocked?
It's just part of kind of how it works. So
plus you also know that you could get those, granted he is the red zone or the goal line back, but Josh Allen gets a lot of the goal line carries and runs and stuff. So if you're hoping Zach Moss can get a touchdown, you might be right, but it's also a huge toss-up. And with the lesser amount of shares versus CEH, you got to.
Yeah. So a couple other ones real quick here before we wrap up for the night. Sideline asking, how do we feel about Rashad Bateman? I love him as a stash piece if you can afford it.
Same.
I think that he was I honestly close to my wide receiver 1 coming out of the draft. I liked him as much as Waddle and as Chase and those guys. I thought he was excellent. Just played in a weird spot in Minnesota, then sat. So I like him a lot. I think there's a chance he could pop right in and be able to go there. Holy cow! Just traded Kyler Murray and Darrell Henderson for Christian McCaffrey since he had Jalen Hurts on the bench.
Whoa.
I mean, that's a bold move, but honestly, the fact that you had Jalen Hurts, adding Christian McCaffrey can be a league-winning move. So you're banking on Jalen Hurts keeping up at the pace that he is, but quarterback is more replaceable than the most valuable asset in fantasy, which is the high-volume play of McCaffrey. Now, you're banking on health there, so this is a huge swing. But if McCaffrey comes back, and he might play this week, if he comes back and is just healthy and playing again at the level he was before, McCaffrey can be a league-winning play. So Kyler Murray is the number 1 quarterback. He scored a ton of points. He was actually down a little bit this past week. Yeah,
they got some running. They've been getting rushing touchdowns with Connor and Edmonds the last couple of weeks.
Yes, James Conner back-to-back 2-touchdown games. So you weren't on. So our guest, Victoria and Rich, laughed at me 2 weeks ago when I said, hey, that's kind of weird. I kind of think this might even be a James Conner week in the matchup that they had for Arizona. And her laugh was one of those like blurred out instinctive dismissive laughs, like that's fair.
That's ridiculous.
And I was really excited to tweet at both of them afterwards when he scored 2 touchdowns.
I didn't get past the intro of the episode because I wasn't on it, and within 5 seconds, Rich tried to give me crap for liking Jalen Hurts again. So I was like, "Well, I'm done with this episode."
Sorry, I know I'm already done. I hate you guys.
Yeah.
Robert, so I will say, sideline, that's a very risky trade, but I like it. I like
also,
upside swings like that.
I want to shout out his league for making a deal like that.
Heck
I
yeah.
love people making
That's
fantasy
awesome.
trades, and that's a huge power move trade
yeah.
that it could work out for even. Like, that's awesome. Like, that you have someone in that league who is willing to do that. You were willing to pull the trigger. Fantasy should be fun. Kudos to you and that other dude and that league. Good stuff.
Yeah, that's fun as hell. DK Metcalf or I'm assuming Jamar Chase.
Game started, I feel like. So.
Yeah, I apologize. We may have missed this.
No, he just put it in like 2 minutes ago.
So DK, I think, is a safe play. I like Jamar Chase this week. I like Jamar Chase a lot, and I apologize. I'm drawing a blank.
What if he means Chase Young and this is an IDP league?
Super weird. Who am I drawing a blank on the corner from Green Bay? Awesome
Jair
corner.
Alexander.
So Jair Alexander might not play, and Joe Mixon might not play. That's a really nice combination for Jamar Chase.
T. Higgins is still out.
Yep. Man, he's slowly coming back.
Banged up.
Yeah, trying to come back. I like Jamar Chase a lot this week. DK Metcalf is, week. He's going to be the better play 12 weeks out of the year. This might be the week that I would pick Jamar Chase.
Yeah, it's so tough to bench DK, but I'd have no problem going Chase. I like the plus matchup. And I like his talent, and yeah, I'd actually go Chase.
Couple more real quick here. Schultz or Waller, full PPR.
Waller
is. I'm assuming you're saying Schultz from Detroit, from Dallas, and Darren Waller.
Waller.
Do not lose faith. Do not lose faith.
Darren Waller does not get benched unless you also have like Travis Kelce.
Yeah, correct. And even then, one of them should be your
fair.
flex.
Yeah, like,
even then, one of them should be your flex. You should be playing both. I'm playing in a league with one of my neighbors who drafted Travis Kelce and Darren Waller purely for the purpose of making sure nobody else had one of them.
Fair.
And it's been like, I was like, well, that's dumb. And now I'm trying to trade for one of them. And I'm like, oh, this is why you did that. Yeah.
Fair.
I really would like one of those guys. I have to now start a garbage person at tight end every week.
That's
and
fair.
You have both of them. So. Yeah.
Should show up to it. You should egg his house.
Yeah, I know. I might yell things out his window here in a minute. And yes, Damian Williams is worth starting as an RB2. I think that's right where he is. I think he is an RB2. I don't think he's a worse football player than David Montgomery. Like I think he's a pretty similar football player to David Montgomery. He's just a year or two older.
Interesting.
He's not a terribly less talented player than Montgomery is. This is probably me more saying I don't think David Montgomery is that special of a talent. I think he's a good running back, and I also think Damien Williams is a good running back. And that if you give someone an NFL backfield, they're going to score points.
I like Montgomery more as a player.
Sure.
But I don't think Damian Williams is anything to sneeze at or just disregard. And Justin Fields will be able to move the ball a little bit. Hopefully, ideally, their offense gets a little bit more exciting. At the end of the day, I think he gets, even if their offense is terrible, I mean, you don't want to have somebody on a terrible offense, but I think Damian Williams is going to see us, I don't know, like 60% of the snaps at the least, roughly. Like, so you're getting a guy who's going to do that. Plus he's, got some talent around him with Fields and Allen Robinson, and Darnell Mooney has all of a sudden jumped back onto the page like a lot of us thought he would. So yeah, I think Williams is 1,000% an RB2.
Yeah. Damian Williams is the reason the Chiefs won that Super Bowl in that run. He was amazing.
1,000%. Whoa! I want to pull this comment real quick. This is Sideline Star, first time playing fantasy football, and in your first time playing fantasy, you pulled off that trade. That is super cool.
Boy,
that is super.
awesome.
Oh, and look, we got some Sideline Star's killing it. He just subbed to us.
That's right.
Appreciate you, Sideline Star.
Man.
And yes, we always stream together, and then we have a third member of this team, Mr. Rich Haynes, but he was unavailable this evening. I actually am unavailable next Thursday, ironically. But yes,
normally we do. Also, yes. Anthony has an awesome show on the Bills on Wednesday nights doing disguise coverage, and I host later on Wednesday nights the Cover One Buffalo podcast with Aaron Quinn. So,
and we also stream together on the Cover One. We do the Bills post game show every week as as well and do a lot of things.
We'll do one or two more here before we wrap up. It's crazy that this is an actual question. Is that who should I start in fantasy football? Cordero Patterson or Saquon Barkley? Patterson has been a monster. He has gotten a ton of volume.
I drafted Patterson. I drafted Patterson in that dynasty league, and I dropped him before the season started. Did you also know that?
I know. I forgot that. That's awesome.
Fun times.
That's funny. So Cordero Patterson right now is just a ridiculous weapon who is scoring a ton of points, and in most leagues I think is like RB2 or 3 overall. Where they were with Eckler behind Derrick Henry.
That's so stupid.
Saquon Barkley has also been really, really good and come on after what we told everybody. Hey, be patient. It's going to be a slow start. The last 2 weeks, 21 and 29 points. He scored 50 points, 51 points in the last 2 weeks. He's playing Dallas. Dallas is a better defense than the Jets. I know Cordero Patterson has been crazy hot. If he just continues to get the same volume that he gets but doesn't get the crazy touchdown efficiency, he would go back to being a nice 11, 12, 13-point player. I think Saquon could put up another 20 points. I would still play Saquon, even though it's crazy that it's even a debate. Patterson's awesome. I would try to find a way to get Patterson into your lineup. I have him in one where I'm just telling myself, nope, if he's playing, I'm going to try to start him and keep him in the lineup. So I get the question. I would still start Saquon over him.
I get everything screaming Cordero Patterson here, playing the Jets. Calvin Ridley's out. Russell Gage is out. He's been ridiculously inefficient. I think at some point he will regress towards the mean, and I do like him. But Saquon, if anything, Saquon is getting better as he gets healthier and this season progresses.
Try really hard to trade Cordero Patterson to someone.
Oh, that's fair.
Like Cordero Patterson is by far, like I tried to tell people when Sterling Shepard started hot the first 2 weeks, hey, I would hurry up and try to trade him because odds are this isn't going to continue. I would try to trade for one of those desperate guys who had a running back on a slow start. Just in general, buying low and selling high in fantasy is going to pay off more than it's going to burn you. Every once in a while, Cooper Kupp just stays hot the whole year. And that happens. That can happen, and you can miss out on that and be frustrated.
Yeah.
More often than not, if somebody wants to pay you someone playing at their peak and trade you someone who is not playing that great, so first play, the Seahawks had the ball. Tyler Lockett just went for a 25-yard bomb.
Touchdown?
No,
first play, sorry.
25-yard.
I take it. I got Russ in my home league.
The Rams punted, had the ball first and punted a couple short plays to Henderson.
The Rams are all of a sudden looking not like the
first play of the game went to Robert Woods. Certainly not an accident.
Oh, good.
So, Rolando, I agree 100%. I would be trying to move Patterson for a receiver. Absolutely. Absolutely trying for that. And honestly, someone like Robert Woods is who I would go after, which obviously is going to be tough for tonight. But somebody who started kind of slow, is off to a weird, bad start. Calvin Ridley, A.J. Brown.
You're naming I have all three of those in the Dynasty League.
I'm naming Anthony's roster.
Name my team.
Anthony's team is doing really bad. You should try to trade for all his people.
I'll do it.
But he's ready. But you want to trade for guys who, they're not going to stay bad all year. Things are going to turn back around. Try to trade Patterson for a guy who's been frustrating, disappointing owners, trying to be able to go after that, and that they're going to just be excited that they got a guy who's scoring a ton of points. That's the way I would try to package that. I would try to move it and try to get someone like that. And then work your way down, work your way down to some of the other players that you can. But I think you should be able to get a pretty solid piece for Patterson, and I would cash in while you can because his efficiency is very unlikely to continue. It's just
he said there's a guy who really wants to trade A.J. Brown. He said I could do maybe Patterson for A.J. Brown. I would do 100%. That trade.
Matter of fact, Rolando, I don't know who else you have, but if you have a lower level receiver in Antonio Brown or Sterling Shepard or Darius Slayton.
Adams.
No, not Devontae Adams. Don't misguide our people. But if you have another piece that is a lower tier guy, a Henry Ruggs or Tim Patrick. You have somebody else like that, hey, I'll give you a lower level receiver in Patterson for your underperforming guy that you're frustrated with. I would offer things like that. I would try to get a combo like that with a Christian Kirk and AJ Green. I'm looking in the rankings here. Other guys, Marvin Jones. I would try to package one of those kind of guys with Patterson and be like, hey, you're still getting a receiver, plus you get this dynamic guy who's scoring touchdowns every week. I'll take your beleaguered receiver that you don't want anymore. And then you might need to be patient and sit a week. But A.J. Brown is not going to be gone the whole season. He is going to come back. Yes. He's going to be the dynamic athlete that he is. He's going to get the ball, and he's going to have good games, and you're going to be happy you have him from like week 7 on. It's going to be worth making that investment.
Fair. I can second.
All right, man. So one last thing we want to touch on before we sign off here and people turn over to Thursday Night Football is I want to give people some tips on how to look ahead, and that all the frustration you just had trying to have the number 1 waiver claim to go after Damian Williams, and you didn't get Alex Collins, and the week before you didn't get Chuba Hubbard, and you're frustrated with that. Try to anticipate that and use your bench spots. So this is the area and the time of year that you want to be smart and proactive, and that, do you really need to carry a backup quarterback? Do you really need to carry a backup tight end? If you have a stud at those positions, it might hurt to cut a guy like, I don't want to cut Ryan Tannehill. He's still a good player. Well, I'd rather take a swing that you're a week early. And I will tell you, in 2 leagues this past week, when I had a guy declared out, and was put onto IR, and I got to move them into an IR spot in 2 different leagues, the running back I happened to pick off waivers was Damien Williams. And obviously that's just luck. Like that wasn't, I didn't know that was going to turn out the way that it did.
You hurt David Montgomery.
I did. I Nancy Kerrigan, David Montgomery. But the key is, it's too late to grab Tony Pollard. It's too late to grab Alexander Madison. However, there are some pieces here that I think are worth looking towards. And that what I start with, Anthony started with some of the talented players, and that is absolutely a path to do it. I'm going to point out some where I'm going to focus on the situation, because some of the players, if Saquon Barkley gets hurt, I don't know that Devontae Booker's really going to matter all that much. I just don't think that Saquon Barkley is succeeding despite the Giants' offense and surrounding system. However, I think that there could be some value in getting pieces behind some of the different key players. So in Tennessee, we've seen Jeremy McNichol now start to get a fair amount of touches. If at some point Derrick Henry hits the wall that he has avoided this entire time, that could be worth it. Another piece we talked about, he got a touchdown last week, and we talked about how safe the floor is. If something happens to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, having the starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs is going to matter. I think it's worth stashing Darrell Williams. I think he's a piece that you just want to have a piece of that. You want to have a guy that could be in that kind of spot. Similar to my comments on Saquon Barkley, if Najee Harris gets hurt, I don't know that I love Anthony McFarland, but he is returning from IR and is probably the most talented guy in that backfield behind there.
It's not Benny Snell.
Correct. It is not Benny Snell. I think that he's the piece that you would want to have. And one other sneaky one that you mentioned before, Tony Jones is now out 4 to 6 weeks. Devine Ozigbo is the guy who would come in if Alvin Kamara got hurt. So again, these are dart throws. These are pieces. The same way, I think that Jared Patterson would be the piece who would get value, not necessarily J.D. McKissick. I think it would be Jarrett Patterson who would get value if something happened to Antonio Gibson. So, again, it is the same thing. The reason people scrambled to get after, Samaje Perine and Damian Williams and Alex Collins this week, try to get a step ahead of that. Try to get a week ahead of where those guys are and grab the guy who might come behind one of those high-scoring offenses right now, that they'd be able to step right in and take that spot. Any other names that come to mind or situations that you would monitor, Anthony?
No, I think you nailed it. I think a lot of them are the given ones that most guys aren't going to be able to be picked up now at this point, like the Madisons and the Pollards of the world. And I think you nailed all the possible situational guys. I don't think...
I wouldn't pick up Malcolm Brown. So there's a lot of those guys available that it's just, or one of the other Jets pieces or one of the other Texans pieces. It's just, there's no upside to that. if you're going to go after someone in a backfield that'll matter.
Correct, because it's not about just taking a flyer for the sake of taking a flyer. You want to take it because they're like, well, this guy's super talented, and at some point he's going to see the field and get some opportunity. Or it's because this situation, he's already gotten some touches. He's not the guy really, but the person ahead of him is potentially injury prone. Like in some of my deeper leagues, I drafted Samaje Perine because I was like, well, Joe Mixon's injury prone. I drafted, granted he got hurt too, but I took Rashad Penny with some late shares because I was like, Chris Carson tends to always get banged up. So looking situationally is 1,000% spot on. And I think you nailed the backfields that are right now legitimate in terms of what they could produce. Because again, you don't want to just start grabbing backups for the sake of grabbing backups because you're like, well, if the starter goes down, I got somebody, because that might not result in anything. And I also think your call on Washington was spot on. J.D. McKissic's role is third down, scat back. He does it well. That's what they use him. They are not going to use him as a 3 down. It's not Gibson goes down. McKissic's going to get 85% of the snaps. They want to have someone be more of the first and second down back, getting more of the running snaps and allowing McKissic to do what he does best, which is make people look foolish in the open field on option routes and coming out of the backfield in the passing game.
100%.
Spot on.
Awesome. Anything else for the people before we sign off here?
No,
Seahawks, Rams are still 0-0, so we haven't cost you anything too exciting yet.
Well done. No, we got a lot of I love the engagement and interaction we got from everybody tonight. Great comments, great questions. Appreciate everybody who rode with us live on this episode. Really appreciate Sideline Star for the kind words and the sub and everything. And we also got some kind words earlier. Where was it? From Brent over here saying that he loved Cover One and appreciates us doing the stream. Super fun and enlightening. And he said, thanks. No, that's it. I just appreciate everyone. Fantasy football is the bane of my existence. I hate that I even play it and do it. But you guys are awesome for riding along with us, and great questions. Great, again, insightful questions. I thought this was a really fun episode, and a lot of it was because of who rode live with us and, kind of pushed us in that direction.
Talking to you guys live is way better than playing fantasy football. Playing fantasy football is way, way worse. But talking to you guys about it is fun.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you guys. Make sure you're checking out everything going on at Cover One. We have all kinds of great coverage here. But we'll be here for you each week, answering these kind of questions, helping you out, getting ready for the week to go. Again, try to anticipate that. Try to stay a week ahead. Try to work ahead and look down the future. We talked about it with quarterbacks. We've talked about it with defensive matchups. We talked about it with handcuff running backs. This is the time of year where you want to consolidate and start thinking down ahead, planning ahead, and being able to be ready to anticipate those things. Check out our sponsor over at Underdog Fantasy. Download the Underdog Fantasy app. Use the promo code COVER1. Get yourself $10 free in play. It can be a lot of fun that way. But on behalf of Anthony Prohaska, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Fantasy, and we are out.